The Rebel Capitalist Show.
All right, guys, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome someone back to the Rebel Capitalist Show. He's a good buddy of mine, and he is without a doubt the hardest working person on YouTube, and maybe off YouTube now. But he is Meet Kevin, or Kevin Paffrath. And I'm purposely mispronouncing that, and you know why I'm doing that, Kevin. but let's fill in the audience as to why I'm purposely struggling with your last name, and let's just go all the way back in this whole bid from you even text me and you said, hey man, I think I'm thinking about running for governor here. What's your opinion of that? I said, go for it. I think it's a fantastic idea. So this was maybe, what was that, about 3 months ago or so that you texted me about running for governor. And sure enough, you went out there and made it happen. You had this huge campaign. I follow you on Instagram, but I don't want to tell the story. Tell the whole story, because then I think at the end it ties in to how we really need to think about how to improve government.
Yeah, no kidding. Golly. Well, geez, it's been an incredible ride. I mean, there are so many things that you don't expect when you try something new. You can't even plan for some of the things. Like my announcement post on Instagram getting deleted by Facebook. And then only after Fox News hears that a company who heavily supports and donates to the existing governor deleted the announcement post of a potential competitor. Only after Fox News and the media hear about that does Facebook and Instagram U-turn and go, oh yeah, that was just a mistake.
I didn't realize they even did that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was my very first post. I'm announcing that I'm running, and you see, Facebook donated like $27 million to Gavin Newsom. Mark Zuckerberg personally donated like $3 million to his campaign efforts. And so you've got massive money going in there, and anybody coming up to try to throw a wrench in that gear, it's a waste of money for them, basically, right? It ruins their return on investment. So how easy is, we'll just happen to delete that post. But when Fox, I was surprised by this, when Fox heard about it and they contacted Facebook, Facebook was like, oh yeah, sorry, that's a mistake. Put the post right back up. Fox still ran a story on it, but it's just the things that have happened in the campaign have been really surprising. And that's just how it started. But yeah,
did it open up your eyes as to how crooked the government is? Because I remember, the last time we spoke on your channel, I think it was the last time, you kept asking me about what I would suggest we do to fix this problem and this problem and this problem. And I kept going back to the same thing. I said, you got to reduce the size of government. You've just got to make it smaller, because to improve it while it's growing it's impossible, because it's going to attract people who have an insatiable lust to have power over other people. So the solution is to reduce the size of power the government has, and then you won't get those people that are vying for those positions that have no integrity and have very low character. You'll get more people like you running for governor and politics that truly do have what's best for the people as their number one priority. But I mean, this had to be an experience that just kind of took it just really revealed everything. And walk us through that experience. Because I think initially going into this, you didn't expect government to be as crooked as you found out it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is so right on. And I've built a lot of my campaign plan around smaller government, like less, like where can we streamline government? Where can we get the government out of people's lives and actually start fixing the problems that we have? But unfortunately, it's like running a campaign in a system that is so designed for this massive machine has been very challenging. I'll give you a quick example, and we can get into like policies and stuff. But quick example, the political machine in California is so strong that I'm running a campaign against the existing governor. And most people, when they hear my plan and they see my plan, they're like, Kevin, you're a Republican. This is great. We love you. And then they hear that, and I know this is going to get a lot of hate on your channel, but when they hear I'm running as a Democrat, half of them are like, sure, you're a Democrat. And the other half are like, oh my gosh, you said Democrat, bye, right? And so there's a lot of this like labeling that goes on in politics. whether it's identity politics or whatever. But because I'm running against the existing governor, who is a Democrat, and the existing governor said, we don't want any Democrat running against me. We're just going to brand this as a Republican recall. It's the Republicans versus the existing Democrat, because that's how they branded it, and didn't want a runner-up Democrat. Me now trying to run a campaign with this premise of, let's fix government. Let's have smaller government where we can have smaller government. Let's just focus on common sense solutions and fix things that both Democrats and Republicans want solved. In trying to run a campaign like this, I've realized, well, I can't hire a Republican campaign manager because I'm running a Democrat campaign. So I can't hire anybody on the Republican side, fundraisers, marketers, whatever. We got to figure it all out ourselves. So then I go, okay, well, naturally you'd think, well, we should hire a Democrat campaign manager and fundraiser and all this. Well, none of them will work for anyone in a Democratic recall when the system has said no one but Gavin Newsom gets to run on the Democratic side. So like, here you are having the system look at you in the face and go, you got great ideas, but nobody's going to help you because the system doesn't want that. Right. So it's like, wow.
Right. So that was the first eye opener that you really had.
One of the first. After Facebook, that was the next one, because I announced, and then it was like, okay, let's hire. And I, like, the people who would reach out, I found out they're all Republicans on their resume. And then I discovered this. It's like, well, no wonder the Democrats aren't reaching out.
Right. So help me understand how the process works. I'm sure you just don't announce it. You've got to fill out some paperwork, or, yes. I mean, what actually happens? How do you run for governor?
Yeah, you open a committee and you file an intent to run statement. And it's actually really easy. You fill out a paper. It's a couple forms. It's 2 forms in California, and you submit it. Then you get a committee. You have a treasurer who runs your committee. That's where your donations go and your fundraising goes. Everything's got to be like really above board on that. It's all like, this is actually one of the places where the media is really good. They comb through that stuff for the public. Like, they do the investigative journalism on all those filings and that. And I think that transparency is wonderful. But then once you get to a certain point prior to the election, you actually have to get a certain amount of signatures, pay filing fees, you swear an oath, you gotta, pick your name on the ballot, which I wanted on the ballot because nobody knows my last name, as you introduced. I put on the ballot that I wanted to be listed as Kevin, quote, Meet Kevin Paffrath. Right. And the reason for that is because nobody knows me as Kevin Paffrath. Everybody knows me as Meet Kevin. And in California, you're allowed to put your nickname on the ballot. In fact, in 2003, a sumo wrestler got his nickname, his stage name, on the ballot. It was like Kurt Takakazi, I don't know, whatever his last name was, some normal last name. But this Takakazi thing is totally his sumo wrestler stage name, which is obviously something he runs a business with.
It'd be like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That's
a great example, right? And a lot of people know him as The Rock. Would people know him as well if it said Dwayne Johnson? Maybe not as well, right? So Secretary of State denied me. They're obviously in Gavin Newsom's back pocket. So they denied me. I had to file a lawsuit to try to appeal. There's no appeals process. In fact, I talked to the Secretary of State. I'm like, please let me appeal. They're like, if you don't like it, you could sue us. So I tried doing one more thing because I'm like, well, I'm between a rock and a hard place anyway. And before I spend money on a lawsuit, I made a video and I'm like, hey, if my audience, if you know me as Meet Kevin instead of Kevin Paffrath, would you mind sending an email to the Secretary of State? And I put their email up there, like candidates at whatever it was. And within 14 minutes, I think they got about 4,000 emails of people going, he's Meet Kevin. Their attorney called me freaking out, going, please take the video down. Take the video down. We'll do anything. We'll call you with an update by tomorrow. We'll help you out. We'll call you tomorrow. Just take the video down. And I'm like, trying to be the optimistic person that I am. Okay. I'll take the video down. I'll expect your call tomorrow by 5. This was on a Thursday. I take the video down. 5 o'clock Friday comes around. They never called me.
Of course not. Of course not.
Of course not. It's like, so had to, and then I'm like, I should put the video back up. That was kind of the emotion, but then I'm like, well, I'm going to go to court and that's not going to look very good. So go to court. Well, file a lawsuit.
So, and
First
again,
of all,
just to recap here, so everyone's on the same page, and this is why I purposely screwed up your name at the intro. There is you wanted to have Kevin or meet Kevin Pathrath on the ballot, because that's when people are going to vote, like, oh, I didn't know his last name was that, but I know Meet Kevin. Yeah, I want to vote for Meet Kevin. That's because it gives you an edge, because that's how people know you. But then the AG or the secretary, or I'm not sure who did this, they said, oh, no, Secretary of State said, oh, no, you can't do that, which really, it's most likely because they're in the back pocket of Gavin Newsom. So they want to eliminate as much competition as possible. So then you say, okay, if my only option is to sue, then I'll go ahead and take it to court, because I need to be on that ballot as Meet Kevin. And then that's why you put up that video. So that's how we get to where we are right now in the story, where you're actually going to court to try to plead your case.
Yeah, exactly. And to clarify for everyone, I didn't want to just be on as Meet Kevin. It would have been Meet Kevin Pathrath, because sometimes when I explain that, people wonder in the comments, like, why would you be able to be on the ballot as Meet Kevin? No, it's both. The nickname in the middle, so both would be on there. Right. But yeah, so I got to hire an attorney. Well, guess what? No Democratic attorney is going to sue the Secretary of State, because it's Gavin Newsom's administration. So I hook up with the best Republican attorney in the state, who basically they sue Gavin Newsom like every day. It's great, right?
Yeah, right.
In fact, when Gavin Newsom was suing himself in his own administration, which that's a whole nother story, I was going to file an interpleader lawsuit. And I talked to the same people. They're like, we could go all hands on deck, 7 attorneys. We can have this lawsuit out by Monday. It's a big deal, whatever. I didn't end up going through with that, but it was that firm. Caitlyn Jenner ended up using the same firm to file that interpleader that we were thinking about filing. That ended up all getting resolved. I'm kind of glad I didn't go in that direction. But anyway, that firm has a big reputation. So then it comes to me filing this lawsuit about my nickname. Larry Elder, who's the front runner right now on the Republican side, he calls this
the talk
Republican
show host, right? The talk show host. Yeah.
He calls the same law firm that I've been talking to for months. And because I'm a Democrat running, the Democrat campaign, Larry Elder's Republican, they drop me like a hot potato. And they take his case to represent him in court. They give me a referral to a newer attorney. And Larry Elder wins his case with the attorney that I was going to use. I go to court with my guy. My guy screwed up the paperwork, and the judge was like ready to dismiss the case before even hearing it, saying there was no jurisdiction. I'm like, how do you mess up the paperwork? But anyway, that gave me the opportunity to fire my attorney while he was in court. I go into court, and this is Zoom court, by the way. So
I was there. I was watching it because you asked me to be in the green room in case, so I could testify if need be. So I was watching this. I was sitting there on my phone, just waiting for your to go into the green room if need be, so I could step into that Zoom call and testify on your behalf. So I was watching this. Yeah.
And thank you for that. Seriously. Yeah. My gosh. Then, so this video is on YouTube. It's somewhere on my Twitter at RealMeetKevin. If you scroll down, you can see a link for it. But anyway, so now I'm arguing my own case, and the judge tries to use this law that says, well, section 20370 or whatever it was, says brands cannot be on ballot designations. And initially, that sounds like, oh, you're screwed. It's against the law. But I had already done enough research beforehand to know there are 2 parts to a ballot. There's the ballot name and then the designation. The designation is where brands aren't allowed. So you can't say like former CEO of Apple, right? They don't want brands in the little byline.
Right.
But if your name is a brand, like that Takakazi sumo wrestler or Donald Trump, and Trump is a brand, there's no law that says you can't have brands in the name. Well, unfortunately, the judge didn't care, ruled against me, I can't use Meet Kevin on the ballot, despite someone in 2003 being able to use their stage name. I don't get to use Meet Kevin. So now I'm Kevin Paffrath. We've done no branding as Kevin Paffrath. And I'm like, well, this kind of sucks. So that's obviously a pretty low point. Then I talked to the Republican attorney again that night, whom I didn't get to use because Larry Elder used them. I talked to them and they said, here's the thing, Kevin, you got to know that the particular district that we're in Sacramento, these are almost all handpicked judges by Gavin Newsom. Not only are they all pretty much handpicked judges by Gavin Newsom, but this is where it gets even shadier. Gavin Newsom is California governor to potentially run as president in the future. Presidents get to promote state judges to federal courts, and every state judge aspires to be a federal judge in the future. So this Republican attorney is telling me, Kevin, there's no way, even if you go to appeals, there's no way any judge in Sacramento is going to do something like give you your brand name to let you fight against Gavin Newsom in a fair way, right? Because that hurts Gavin Newsom and makes them less likely to get a promotion, whether he's still governor or ends up becoming president in the future. And so the game's rigged.
Yeah, exactly. And that just goes to point out one of the things I've been talking about on my channel for a long time, and that's that we've become a nation of men, not of law. And it should be the opposite. We need to be a nation of laws, not of men. The law should come first, and everyone should, the law should apply to everyone in the same way. And it shouldn't be different for you than it is for Gavin Newsom. But it is, because of the system and how corrupt it is. We've become this, kind of it's almost like a banana republic where who's doing right or wrong, that doesn't matter. It's just whoever has the most pull and the most political connections, they are the ones that obtain all of the power and the power over the people. And they do so by lying to the people and telling them that what they're doing is to their best interest. And it's just, it's frustrating for me, and I'm sorry that you had to kind of get that dose of that cold shower, if you will, by going through the system to truly understand how it works. And they just completely screwed you over, and it's unfortunate because so where's the campaign right now? Because I know you're really doing well. You are making some headway. I saw you on Fox a couple times. One question before we get into that is that I wrote down. Did the media on the left give you much attention?
Not really.
So isn't that ironic that
No.
that you're a Democrat and the only people that want to talk to you, or the only people that will even consider representing you, are either Fox News, a Republican news outlet, or a Republican law firm? I mean, unbelievable.
Yep. Only staff I can get would be Republican staff. I could only get Republican media. For example, I go to Bakersfield. Bakersfield showed up at my campaign rally with 2 camera crews. It's obviously pretty Republican over there. So they're like, a recall Newsom rally, Democrat against Newsom. We're there, right? But nowhere else, especially in the the blue cities. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I've been on. I sat down with and this one, if you look at their Wikipedia, I don't think they are, but their Wikipedia says they're like even far right. But I went on Epoch Times as well, and they did this whole like 30-minute sit down with me, and they were the nicest people in the world. But yeah, no, not much of that. Like I'll go knock on the door of figuratively of a left station. We'll reach out to you. We'll send you an email or whatever. I go knock on the door of Fox 40 in Sacramento. Their producer walks out. Hey, what's up, Kevin? It's such a different world.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not to say that the right is better. I mean, I dislike both parties equally. Yeah. But it just goes to show you that the entrenched political powers that exist, it's almost impossible to dethrone them. And that's the bottom line. And people on the left, I think, should be just as angry about this as anyone else, because you're not getting fair representation. You're not getting the person that you might really see eye to eye with as far as their policies. They're never getting on the ballot, or even if they're getting on the ballot, they're being pushed away to a point where they have zero chance of winning. It reminds me a lot of what they did to Ron Paul and then what they did to Bernie Sanders. It's the exact same stuff, So what are your main takeaways now? I mean, what's your objective? What are you trying to do about the current campaign? Then what do you want to do about it in the future?
Yeah, gosh. Well, I mean, right now we're not letting any of this stop us. We rebranded over the last week and a half with a slogan, which is vote Kevin Paffrath, which obviously is not much of a slogan, especially since people can't really say that. And then we're going with stop the bullship.com.
Yeah, right.
When you say that fast, it sounds like the curse word, which is really hilarious. So at least we think that's hilarious. Some people think it's immature, but I think when they listen to our content, they're like, oh no, this is like very serious. So like, for example, if people now go to stopthebullship.com, they'll see my 55-minute video just outlining, here are the problems, here are the solutions. And it's really good, B-roll, everything. We did a really good job on that. And now we're doing slices of that on social media, slices of interviews on social media, really trying to do what we can to leverage social media. Later today, we'll be announcing a challenge. So by the time this interview is posted, the challenge will be up. So I may as well tell you. I'll tell you that in a second. But we're trying to do whatever we can to not let this setback hurt us, and do whatever we can to just do, like, we want to win. And the reason, even with all these setbacks, we still have a lot of hope, maybe too much hope, but still have a lot of hope, is we think that Democrats who vote no on the recall, like they say they want to keep Newsom, we think they're going to pick us as their backup option, because they'll look at the names and hopefully, either they'll look us up or they'll recognize us and they'll pick us up as a backup option. We think that, especially since it's going to be a mail-in ballot, you have time to look up your options, right? So we think people that are Democrats who vote no on recall will pick us as a backup. We think Democrats who vote yes on recall will pick a Democrat as a backup option. They're not going to vote for a Republican as a backup option. And we think that Republicans who want somebody who's actually going to get something done, they might pick us. And a lot of them are saying they're going to pick us as well as their main option. So they'll go, yes, recall, yes, Kevin Paffrath. Reason for that being, they realize that if a Republican governor gets in for the next 12 months, they're not going to get anything done before the 2022 election, which is in, 12 or 13 months after someone takes office. So I think the best chance for California is a different leader, a leader who can pull together the state and work with all sides and actually solve the problems we have. Water, the housing crisis, crime, homelessness. Oh my gosh. But I've been talking for a while. I'll tell you about my challenge in a bit. Let me let you talk first.
Yeah, well, so why would you run as a Democrat? Because it seems as though the majority of your policies are kind of geared towards reducing the size of government and streamlining things. And that's especially with, now I would have said that would have been mainstream for Democrats back in the 1960s, in the 1980s, maybe even in the 1990s. But it's definitely not the direction the Democratic Party is going now. So why did you choose to run as a Democrat in the first place?
Yeah, so I've been a registered Democrat since 18, and I've always been, I've always found myself pretty much in the middle. But I personally believe that the direction of the Democratic Party right now is just such a disaster that a really good, strong, moderate leader, especially in a state like California, could maybe fix the Democratic Party by being a role model for actually getting things done in a bipartisan way and not extreme ways. But okay, why Democrat? What's one of our Democratic priorities? One of them is having future schools. And the reason I say this is Democratic is first, we want financial education in all of our schools, but specifically future schools where students at 16 could pick to go to a future school where they get a combination of vocational training, college training, high school training, and financial education. So by 18, they're wealth builders, they're career workers, whether it's a career plumber and an investor, career electrician, an investor, programmer, nurse, whatever, right? But we want that school to also be open for, in possibly a separate campus, so children are separated from adults, but we want those schools to also be open for adults. So think about this. People in prisons have no educational hope. They get out and they go right back to crime because they have no money and they have no hope. Homeless, very hard to rehabilitate if you don't have any money and you have no education and nobody's going to hire you. It's also very hard to keep jobs in California when schools aren't really teaching what businesses actually need here. So I believe that we can offer $2,000 a month for up to 2 years, it's $48,000, to adults to go to future schools, whether they're, and no discrimination, whether they're homeless, whether they're in jails, whether they're just working for minimum wage and want to have a career while still being able to pay for their childcare. This is one of the examples of my plan where we get a little bit more of an involvement of big government, but it's ironically an investment into making government smaller, because when we're spending $120,000 a year on somebody in jail or on homeless support services, 1/3 of Californians are on Medi-Cal. The first thing we need to do is spend a little bit more, invest in Californians, and then start getting people off welfare, Medi-Cal, and start shrinking. So that's one of the priorities that I understand is more on the left side. Some of my other priorities like housing or traffic solutions with the private sector, homeless solutions, these probably lean more right. In balance, I think I'm pretty 50-50.
What do you do about the taxes there?
Yeah, so the big thing,
or price controls like rent control.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of government setting price controls. I'm not a fan of really a higher minimum wage. That's why I prefer the future school idea. I'm not a fan of rent control or Section 8. I wouldn't get rid of those things. But if we build more houses, we get the government out of the way, streamline the building and safety process, have maybe one building and safety standard throughout the state that's a little bit elevated, but one standard to where we can get faster permits, faster approval, utilize the strength of the private sector to maybe approve our permits. We've got licensed architects and engineers that can gladly help us approve permits much faster than our bureaucrats can in offices, under maybe some supervision. I get it. There's a balance between government and private sector. But we need to build 500,000 homes a year in California to get ahead with
How many
our
are being
housing
built
crisis.
right now? Do you have any idea?
80,000.
80,000?
Yeah. Just
Wow.
to stay par. So right now we're doing 80K. To stay par, we need to be building 300,000. And to get ahead, we've got to be at about 500K. Now we've got 482 cities, so we've got the room to do it. But we just need a governor who can lead that change.
Yeah, so you got to, and see, the thing that politicians, especially on the left, they always talk about how I'm going to change this, I'm going to do that. What they don't understand is they aren't going to do anything. Who's going to do that is the entrepreneur. The entrepreneurs or the home builder. They're the ones that are going to go out and build new homes. That's what you mean. Not Gavin Newsom. So what we have to do is we have to make it easier for the people who supply goods and services to go ahead and supply more goods and services to bring the prices down. That's what all these people seem to really miss.
Here's a perfect example.
Yeah.
On housing, California requires solar panels on every single house that's built. I believe that rather than requiring solar panels on somebody's house who's going to have like a $30 to $50 electric bill, where now all of a sudden we're doing a special set of permits, a special set of plans, a special set of panels, and an inverter and all this stuff for one house that's barely going to have an electricity bill anyway. It makes zero sense to have solar panels on a house that's paying $30 to $50 a month in electricity. It's stupid. Rather than having mandates like this, we should use scale a little bit more, remove requirements like this, get the government out of the way, let more building happen. But maybe something we do is we say, hey, for every home a certain developer builds, we want you to contribute, and this is basically just a form of a tax, 10 solar panels to our solar farm over here. And that can be done at such a scale to where the cost would be probably a tenth of what the cost would be to put solar panels on every single one of those homes, to where we could actually just have that much more of a solar farm by using scale and logical economics rather than this requirement. That's it. Every house needs solar panels. Like, that doesn't make sense.
So how do we get people in government, in positions of power, that have your type of mindset where you're actually trying to solve problems, real problems, and maybe you're solving them in a different way than I'd solve them, but you're truly trying to do what's best for the people, where instead what we have are these politicians where they're not trying to do, the only person they care about is themselves. And by creating more government and more bureaucracy, more red tape, it just gives them more control to get more fees, to get more kickbacks, to have more power over the individual builders in this case, or they get to determine where that money goes, whether you're being taxed from the builder and then that's going to the solar panels. They're in control of that. Therefore, they're going to have all of these people, lobbyists, as an example, knocking on their door, taking them out to dinner, giving them these brand new cars, giving them all the kickbacks that they want. And they get more and more kickbacks the more they increase the size and scope of government and create more bureaucracy, which is bad for the people because, again, it creates fewer goods and services. So but see, because the system is rigged, and we can tell that it is by your story, how do we change the system to where it promotes the exposure of people who really care about making things better and not just increasing their net worth? Yeah.
One of the things that I like so much about our campaign is that I personally love the idea of get in, make change that you can, and get out. Like, I do not want to be a career politician. There are plenty of things that I want to do. If I could come in and help right the ship and then leave after, whether that's a 1-year term or a 5-year term, fine with me. But I do not want to be a career politician.
So term limits, do you think, is something that would be good?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, here's something that I think is beautiful: is this recall election is only gives somebody the opportunity to be governor for 1 year. So they have 1 year to prove themselves. I kind of personally think every politician should have 1 year to prove themselves. Like, show us what you can do in 1 year. You know what I mean? So that to me is pretty unique. I like that about this recall election. But I don't want to be in politics forever. I don't even like. I think getting rich from politics is kind of the opposite of what politics is meant to be. I feel like politics is supposed to be something where you serve your community and give back. It's just part of living the good life. And that kind of goes back to like Aristotle and all this like philosophical stuff, which I really love. But like the political baggage, the lobbying, the essentially bribery that happens, where you hear, oh, did Gavin Newsom's house get donated by somebody who wanted special projects? Oh, why is the high-speed rail a project that has a 71-year break even? Why was Gavin Newsom against the high-speed rail, and now all of a sudden he's really for it?
Yeah, it's just, I can tell you why. It goes back to exactly what we're saying, because he wasn't getting paid enough. People weren't greasing his pocket with enough to actually say, okay, yeah, I give it the nod. That's his leverage. That's the politician's leverage. They can determine who gets the high-speed rail when they get it, and therefore that's what they use to make money. And that's why you have these career politicians like Elizabeth Warren or more famously Pelosi, who they've never had a job outside of government, but yet somehow they're worth $200 million. How? How is this possible?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true.
That's exactly how you do it. But my big concern right now with society, and not just in California, but overall, is how do you change the mentality of people when it seems like they're just voting for the politicians who just give them the most stuff, right? Well, I'm just going to vote for whatever. They're all crooked. So why not just vote for the guy or gal who promises to give me the most stuff, instead of voting for the guy or girl who really is going to improve things?
It's possible, unfortunately, that things are just going to have to get so bad that like this we have the analogy of the sinking ship, that which COVID is really accelerating in California, which is just more businesses leaving, more people leaving, taxes going up more, right? It's possible that things are just going to have to get so bad to the point where all of a sudden the state is like, oh no, we're going bankrupt, and we can't provide all that money anymore. And then the state might just have to get bailed out through bankruptcy at some point, which is crazy to think about that. But I'm sincerely concerned about that future. And that's one of the reasons I'm running too. People are like, why would you bother running? Well, I I don't want California to be a broken, bankrupt state in 20 years when I'm 49 and my kid is 25, or 25 and 23 are my boys, would be then. I want California to be great, to be exceptional, like it used to be. People used to love California. They used to say, "Oh my gosh, the California dream! Go to California! Wow, why would you move to Texas or Florida or Vegas when you could live in California?" Well, it's the opposite now, and it's time to fix that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my hat's off to you, because a lot of your fellow YouTubers and your good buddies left California. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Graham hit the bid a long time ago, didn't he? Like probably a year ago, he left California, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah. He left a while ago. He must have left at the least like 13, 14 months ago now at this point.
Yeah, he went to Vegas, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
So, but you're someone that said, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to leave. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, because I probably would have left too. But you're someone that says, screw it. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight for what I think is right. And in a way that is very, very commendable. And I've got a lot of respect for you to do that. But how long can you stay on this path? Like, I mean, at some point you've got to put your kid's future as priority number one. And, if they're going to have a better future somewhere else, I think you got to consider that, which I'm sure you have. So where's the line in the sand for Kevin as far as California, if it continues to get worse?
Yeah, golly, Lauren and we've talked about this. So
I'd
Lauren
imagine.
really, really wants to stay here. But she recognizes that we live in potentially this little bit of a bubble where Ventura County hasn't gotten to LA or San Francisco problems yet. And she says, look, I want to stay for not only the weather, the community aspect of living here, but also friends and family.
Right.
But let's be real. If what's happening in San Francisco or happening in LA with the homelessness, the crime, the lawlessness, the trash, the problems they have, if that happens, and the politics, if that happens here, then yeah, it might come time to move. And she's actually already started exploring ideas. Like, she's not as compelled by taxes as I am. So while my ideas might be like Nashville, Florida, Texas, Vegas, she's like, I kind of like Connecticut because it's beautiful. Just fine. Like
you're going from the frying pan into the fire.
these are all negotiations to be had, right? But yeah, I mean, that thought is somebody born and raised in California, Lauren, already like considering like, okay, time to maybe start exploring other things if problems get worse here. Yeah, that's already starting to happen.
Okay, so when is the actual voting day?
Yeah, it's September 14th. They're sending mail-in ballots to everyone in about 12 days. So everybody's gonna have a mail-in ballot, and then of course from there, people can basically start voting in as short as 2 weeks, which is pretty crazy.
Okay, so let's think this through. Scenario A, you win.
Yeah.
Right. What happens then to Kevin? Like, how does your life change? And then what happens to the YouTube channel? I mean, what do you do with that? Because you create an insane amount of content. As someone who creates content for YouTube, I understand how much work goes into that. So what happens to the YouTube channel? What happens to Kevin's life if you win? And then what does the future look like if you lose?
Yeah, golly. Well, that's great. So first, win. It's a matter of surrounding myself with a media team, a content team, which I have, but probably even more so because I still do a lot from right here where I, think of my concepts, I film, I edit, I can do a lot just myself. Sometimes I can even do it faster myself than with help because I don't have to share.
So you'd still want to create content as the governor.
Absolutely. Still create content, but it would probably be more of, okay, we're in between meetings. This just happened in the news. Maybe we're driving somewhere. We're going somewhere.
More like vlog style format.
Yeah. Follow me around. Hey, Kevin, can we get your thoughts on what the Fed said? Boom. 3 minute. Okay. These are my thoughts on what the Fed said. These are my thoughts on what's going on with this. These are my thoughts on that. So probably shorter form, more, but still the same amount, but maybe just a little shorter and more on the go. That's a little bit of what I'm thinking. We'd also have a separate governor's vlog, which has never been done before.
See, that's I think a huge selling point for voters, because you've got all this corruption that we're talking about. But if you win, you will be, you can dispute whether or not you'll be the greatest governor of all time, but the one thing you will for sure be is the most transparent governor of all time. And that, I think, is a huge win regardless.
Yes. That's such a big thing. Is that something that government really needs is more transparency. So that's a win side. Then next thing would be lose side. Depending on our momentum, which right now we expect to be strong enough, we want to go into 2022. If a Republican wins,
so you want to run again?
Yeah.
Okay.
If a Republican wins, it's probably best case scenario for running again, because it's going to be easier on a clean slate to run against a Republican in California. Right? So you get a Republican governor, the Democrat, and this is so petty, but the Democratic government's going to sandbag them for the next year. So they're not going to get anything done. So then it becomes easy to compete against them, in my opinion. If Gavin Newsom wins the recall and he's up for re-election in 2022, you could still fight him in the primaries. There are probably not going to be a lot of other Democrats to fight him in the primaries. So depending on how much momentum we got, it could be worth running against him in 2022. So we'll just see how it all plays out.
Okay, man. Well, Mr. Future Governor, I appreciate your time, man. It's always awesome to speak to you. So for my viewers and listeners who want to find out more about what you're doing, more about your campaign, Stop the Bullship, where can they go to check that out?
Yeah, so there's stopthebullship.com that gives you my full video on our full plan. If you want a written version or some more detail, you could also go to meetkevin.com. Still trying to figure out exactly, because it's generally not good to have two destinations for folks. So we're working on figuring that out exactly. But yeah, either meetkevin.com, stopthebullship.com, or go to both of them. But both are great. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, keep up the amazing work. I can't wait to see what happens. And I look forward to having another conversation soon, my friend.
Same. Thanks so much.
Hi, guys. I'd like to invite each and every one of you to the next Rebel Capitalist Live event. If you are a fan of the Rebel Capitalist show, I guarantee you will love the live event. The next one is Houston, where you can meet and listen to speakers, all your favorites from the Rebel Capitalist show. People such as Dr. Ron Paul, Chris Cole, Lynn Alden, Luke Gromen, just to name a few. If you want to check out the rest of the speaker list and find out how you can attend, we'll put a link in the description below, or you can just go to rebelcapitalistlive.com. This is an event where you can learn to build wealth and thrive in a world of out-of-control central banks and big governments. But it's not just about building wealth. It's about increasing your freedom and networking with like-minded individuals, fellow rebel capitalists. It's an amazing event. I know you'll absolutely love it. Check out rebelcapitalistlive.com, and I will see you in Houston.